Hi everybody, my name is Brittany Kusa and I'm going to be discussing two pieces of art that I really like from the genre known as outsider art. Outsider art is a term used to describe work. Basically, it's known as work made by self-taught artists. So art that is not recognized within like the commercial umbrella of art, non-academic art, non-traditional art that doesn't fit within a specific movement maybe during the modern art period. But more importantly, it's art made by people who aren't often in places where they get recognition. So a lot of times that can mean art made by people with disabilities, people who are in prison, people who are houseless people. It can kind of encompass everyone, which is one of the reasons why I really like the work that comes from outsider artists. It's art that is made purely from impulse, creative impulse, and outside of the pressures of what, the mechanism of art as a job or art as an industry has become. So anyway, outsider art is a term that basically came from, or it's the English word for the art brut movement. So art brut, meaning like rough art. That is what outsider art is meant to be as well. The art brut movement was created by Jean de Buffet in the 50s. He was a French painter, and he basically changed his whole perspective on what art was and how the modern art world was sort of moving after seeing a book. It was a collection of works from people that were institutionalized in Europe at the time, and the artwork really moved him because it was, again, these creations that were directly from the impulse of creating, sort of like the purest reason for art to exist, foundations of why art is made. After seeing this book, he sort of changed his direction in what he wanted to do with his career, and that's how the art brut movement was sort of, given a lot more attention, and that's why outsider art today is still given attention in a larger scale. But anyway, I'd like to talk about these two pieces. So the first piece I'm going to discuss is from this very prolific artist by the name of Henry Darger. Henry Darger was an artist. He was born in Chicago in 1892, and he had a pretty tumultuous childhood. He was put in an orphanage at a young age because his father was really sick, and from there he ended up being institutionalized. He had some developmental stuff going on that would have been treated a lot differently now, but unfortunately he was sent away to a place where he wasn't really given proper attention, as a child. So he had a kind of disjointed and strange life as a child. A lot of that experience, I think, is reflected in his work. He, after school, ended up working as a janitor in a hospital in Chicago and pretty much kept to himself, had very few friends, but was a likable, nice person. He died later, I think in 1973, and he had worked in this hospital pretty much his whole adult life. After he died in 1973, when people went into his very tiny apartment to assess the situation, they found that he was an incredible and active artist. He never really talked about it, never really shared his work with anyone except for one or two close friends his whole life. And this is especially impressive because he was a very active artist. At the time his apartment was gone through, people found hundreds and hundreds of paintings, watercolors, and drawings. They also found multiple manuscripts for fantasy stories he had written. One of those is a book called The Story of the Vivian Girls, which was a 15,000-page manuscript, which was accompanied by illustrations and paintings depicting the story. A lot of these paintings were painted as scrolls, and some were 3 to 5 feet long. It's just an incredibly impressive amount of work to have been doing, and without anyone knowing. So his piece that I chose, it's actually from that manuscript, the Book of the Vivian Girls, or the Story of the Vivian Girls. It's called At Wiki Lancina, Escape with Their Brother. So it's a part in the story where these children go to rescue their brother from somewhere he had been captured. And in the painting you can see all these children on horseback, and there's fires, and basically they like set fire to a camp. And you can see landscape and trees and things in the background. But what's interesting about this piece, and this is how Henry Darger worked, it's watercolor and graphite on tracing paper. So he spent a lot of his time tracing characters from magazines and advertisements and reincorporating those into his drawings. So all of his work is densely packed with tons and tons of little drawings and tons of little drawings of children and stuff. And he, basically would trace, he'd kind of create a composite character from tracing things and then trace that over and over and over to create these long works, and he'd fill everything in with whatever was happening in the scene that he was representing with the paintings he was making. I think that Henry Darger is a really great example of why outsider art is important, why recognizing that we all have the ability to tell an imaginative and creative story is important. I think that everybody has and can have that impulse to express themselves creatively like he did, and it's about giving that more attention and giving that more, nurturing that more, But another piece of art I want to talk about is called It Just Could Be's by an artist named Daryl Airy, who is actually a local artist, and he passed away in November of 2019, so pretty recently. But he was a really awesome person, and if any of you have lived in Seattle for a while or have lived in the Capitol Hill area for a while, it's very likely that you've seen him. He was out almost every single day selling paintings, either in front of Dick's Drive-In or in front of the city market on Capitol Hill. And he was a person who's very full of life and full of stories, and expressed himself all the time in the work that he made. And he created most of his work on salvaged pieces, so like pieces of wood or cardboard or metal sheets, and he used paint or markers, pens, anything that was like donated to him from friends he made in the community. I think that his life and the art that he created and the appreciation that he has, there's a lot of people in Seattle that really love Daryl, and it's a testament to the power of community art and community support. He was a houseless person who didn't always, have the easiest life, and he still was able to create this work and connect with people, and he had something that was a big outlet of joy and a source of pride. And I think that that's one of the things that's really powerful about art and creating art. It can give anyone meaning and give anyone the belief that their thoughts are important. I think that everybody has something unique to share, and that is one of the beautiful things of recognizing outsider art. We all have something to say, and we all have a story that can be important to give to the world. Anyway, if anybody would like to know about any other outsider art artists or have any questions about that, feel free to send me a message. And thanks for sharing this class.